Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge podcast, well, the Pacers Lounge podcast also. I am Anthony Irwin, senior Lakers insider for Clutch Points, joined on this fine Wednesday night by Raj Chapalu. And Raj, it's the weirdest thing how I asked you the other day after the Thunder won, hey man, do you think you could record it? And you're like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. And then you actually texted me 5 minutes ago. You were like, hey, the Pacers won. Do you want to do a pod? And now here we are.
Yes.
So
yeah, that's how that happened. Those are the events that led up to this. No, I'm so excited though. That was beautiful. That was awesome. That is exactly why we watched. I just have a quick mini rant, Anthony. I watched all day. Okay, as I sat beside, I didn't comment at all because I try not to. All day was Kevin Durant future teams. It was, what is the Spurs package? What is the Rockets package? What is Minnesota's package for Kevin Durant? A player, respect to Kevin Durant, who's sitting at home, replying to fans, who are commenting on him.
That's what he does now.
For sure. But anyway, I saw that dominating the conversation. And the other one that dominated was the Knicks going and asking for head coaches that are currently employed, if they can speak to them. And that dominated the other part of the conversation. I'm like, there's a finals game tonight. Like, there's a huge game tonight. I saw no conversation of adjustments by the OKC, by Indiana, none of that. So I'm so glad. Hopefully these next 2 days, I think the next game is Friday, gets dominated by a basketball conversation, because that was amazing. That is exactly what I was hoping for. I thought this would be close. All the people texting me OKC in 3. I'm glad that is dead. That's actually not even possible, just anyway. But in any case, this is a sweep. They might get one if they're lucky. All that stuff is done now, and we are set up, Anthony, for my favorite game of any basketball series, a 2-1 game. Other than when it's the Lakers, obviously, when they're down 2-1, that's a little bit miserable. But just in a regular basketball scenario, 2-1 game 4, that is the series definer. That tells us if this is a long series or if one team takes a stranglehold. So yeah, just want to get that off my chest, because like we can talk about Kevin Durant's future teams in a week. We can also talk about the Knicks head coach in a week as well. This, like, we have basketball to talk about. Let's talk about basketball.
I mean, that's a very different conversation. Talking about the presentation of this league by a company that clearly cares endlessly more about its own ratings than the health of the league, and a commissioner that frankly has been a coward when it comes to his partners for years now. He continuously just kind of bends over backwards for whatever it is that TNT happens to feel is necessary for themselves when it comes to covering the league. And ESPN and they're endlessly propping up Stephen A. Smith. The NFL, Raj, Stephen A. Smith wants very, very badly to be involved in NFL analysis.
Okay.
Desperately.
I've never seen him on an NFL show.
Advance his personal brand by way of the much bigger ratings boost that is the NFL. And you know what Roger Goodell says all the time? No. No. We're not going to let somebody come on here and breathlessly just unfurl nonsense takes for the sake of going viral on his own YouTube feed. No. If Stephen A., if you want to go viral talking about the NFL, you can do so on your own time, on your own YouTube page. But you are not going to do so on our corporate partner. And our paid for, or not paid for, but like the airtime that we agree upon with ESPN, with CBS, with NBC, and with the Red Zone channel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, Raj, like you're right to point out how stupid it is to be sitting here before a season defining game,
Yes, this
frankly,
is a
right? Like
1-1 series.
it's
1-1.
one series. It's a game where like Indiana can basically make the decision of like, is this going to be a 5-game series or is this going to be a 6 or a 7-game series?
Yeah.
Can we actually win this series? On that day, the vast majority of the conversation across all of ESPN's networks was Stephen A. Smith making the case for Kevin Durant going to the his New York Knicks. It
Sure.
was his New York Knicks and their search for a head coach. ESPN is just the ESASPN is what it's become when it comes to NBA coverage. And I just think it's irresponsible. I think it's been bad for the sport. I think it's been bad, frankly, for ESPN. It's been great for Stephen A. Smith. He apparently might run for fucking president, I guess. I don't know. But like when it comes to, what is actually best for the NBA, I saw Darius made this point when he was talking with Pete about this on LFR the other day. At some point, the NBA has to step up and tell their partners, hey, man, you guys want to cover us?
Let's
You
sell
want
the
to cover
sport.
the actual basketball? Are you capable of doing that? Or are we just stuck with Kendrick Perkins fucking up Moses Moosy's name? That's ironic. Me also messing up his name.
But
Are we stuck with Stephen A. Smith? Are we stuck with Shams Charania telling his own narratives about the realities that he wants to spin for whoever he needs to spin it for? Like, is that the extent of your offerings for us? Because if so, like, can we move on?
yeah, that was my final. So you mentioned Kendrick Perkins, and look, I'm not saying I have to agree with everything they say, but I don't know if you remember this, Anthony. After game 2, they had the panel speaking about Halliburton, and he came out and said, "I don't think Halliburton's going to have a good game in this series." I'm like, we watched what Halliburton has done this entire playoffs, and his prediction was Halliburton would not play well at all because of OKC's defense, which I think there's some validity to. He would struggle against the OKC defense, but just to come out and say he would not play well at all during one game, going home like this is a good Indiana team, which is why I always fought back in terms of their narrative of this series. But yeah, there's a way to sell this sport, man, and just not even having these starting lineups again tonight. This Indiana crowd was amazing. They were raucous. This is exactly what you would want to sell. There was a point in this game, Anthony, where it was Shea versus Halliburton back and forth. I'm like, package this, there was a back and
Oh
forth
my
between
god!
both.
How many conversations did I see today where it was like, is Shea a superstar? Is SGA a superstar? What is a superstar? And it's
Right?
like, it's
Yeah,
the two motherfuckers who were playing in the finals. Let's start there. Let's
yeah,
try that. The
yeah.
two guys who got their teams to the finals. Let's give those guys a go. I don't know. Anyway, I know I want to talk. I don't want to talk about the analysis. I don't want to react to the
Yeah,
analysis. I want to
sure.
talk about this game because
Yes.
this was the first. Like I saw this on the Hoop Collective pod, Wendy's pod with Bontemps and with McMahon, and
Yes.
it's a good stat, right? It's in unquestionable stat that before tonight OKC had led in 94 of the 96 minutes played
Sure.
total, right? And what I was kind of looking for in this game was a legit win, one where OKC doesn't need to rely upon cardiac kids type stuff at the end of the game. Can you go out and win a basketball game in a more kind of traditional manner? Not that it matters what I am looking for or whatever, but still, like, can you do that? And they went out and did that, Raj.
Yeah.
They led for a good chunk of the game. They had complete control of it, I thought, in the fourth quarter. Um, they hit big shots when they needed to hit big shots. They got big stops when they
Mm-hmm.
needed to hit to get those big stops. My favorite play of the game was that Aaron Nesmith foul on Alex
Oh
Caruso.
yes, the
It was
reviewed
it was
one.
like a 7-point lead, and it was the kind of bucket that you could possibly just kind of give up or whatever.
Yeah.
But he took the playoff foul, chased him down, took the playoff foul, and yeah, this felt like a championship win. Whether or not it leads to a championship, I don't know. This series is incredibly close. It's a great series, but
Yeah.
this felt like one of those games that need to be won in a certain way, and the Pacers came through in the way that they needed to.
Yeah, OKC has a way of just punching you, especially when you're down 8 to 10. SGA comes in, just hits you with a run where you're down 20, 22. But I thought Indiana found stuff in those first two games. And yes, the stat is correct. They were only leading for a minute or whatever in this series, but I never thought that OKC looked like they were head and shoulders above, even with the blowout win in game 2.
Oh, see,
Halliburton
I
was
did. I thought they were clearly the better team.
yeah, I mean, they were the better team, but I just never thought that Indiana couldn't home, like, because they did their job to me. And stealing that game 1 gave them the room for error to me in game 2 to not have to just kill yourself in that game 2, right? You split that, you do your job, you come home and win maybe both of these home games, but at least one of these. And I thought they did that. Halliburton was awful in game 2. He had the injury stuff that was supposed before the game, but he came out aggressive and like I'm not pushing back to what you're saying in terms of a real win, but Indiana's play style, Anthony, is you have to beat us for
High
48.
variance.
Yeah, no, you have to beat us for 48 minutes. Like yes, you can be up 10 in the first half, but we are gonna wear on you. Look at I want people to go back. Look at where they pick up Shea in the first quarter. They pick him up full court. Like Shea has to do 3 or 4 left right dribbles to get past his man, and that's Neesmith. That's obviously Nemhard. That's the other guy that they bring off the bench, not Matherin, but I'm blanking on the other guy that played very well, very good defense on him. They just pick you up full court, and it's just
Shepherd?
a Shepherd. Yes. Like they wear on you all night, and I think you saw that again tonight. And I think both of us talked after game 1 about the quick adjustment that Mark Daigneault did of benching Hartenstein, and we both disagreed with that benching. I think you see that impact in the fourth, Anthony, where
They look tired.
well, not just that. Carlisle, I love this because this was the adjustment he did. Miles Turner, you are no longer picking and popping the 35 feet at the top of the key. You
Yeah.
are rolling your big behind down the paint, and you are drawing attention. And like he's giving up. I don't have the weights.
Do you think
in front
that's
of
how Rick says it? Do you think that's
I don't know.
you're rolling your big butt?
I think he uses a little bit more profanity than I decided to use. I don't think Rick says it as nicely as I do. There's probably some F bombs in there of are you shooting out there? They're not guarding you type of stuff.
You're gonna roll really fucking hard. That's what you're gonna do.
Right. Yeah. It's not as nice as I said it. I gave a little bit more grace to Miles Turner, but that has opened things up, Anthony. And Chet looks dead tired to me, and he's giving up how many pounds difference it is between him and Miles Turner, and they found that in the paint. And this is where, to me, the disagreement was of benching Hartenstein in game 1, because now where's your adjustment?
What's the adjustment?
To me, it's starting
back to how you played coming into the series and say whoopsie daisy.
Well, it's your time is a flat circle thing, because I think they need to start Caruso in game 4, but to kind of I think that needs to be an adjustment because Kason Wallace looks like he cannot shoot in this series, and that is a problem with how Indiana has figured out how to defend them. So maybe they start Caruso. I don't know, but that's why I think I disagreed with the Hartenstein benching in the first game. But yeah, this was awesome. Halliburton finding his way again. I see so much Lonzo in him, Anthony, and like the peak, whatever Lonzo's peak would be in some universe that doesn't exist today. But just the way he spreads the ball and that ugly jump shot that you just know is going in crunch time. People forget how many crunch time shots Lonzo hit here, but Halliburton just has people call it dark magic. I like to say it's more like meeting the moment, rather than putting some dark spells on the Indiana Pacers. But no, this was awesome. And man, game 4 is going to be amazing. Like if you thought you got OKC's best bunch tonight, game 4 back against the freaking wall for the MVP in that 68 win team.
You know what would terrify me, Raj, if I was an OKC fan? Alex Caruso was a game worst minus 15.
Yeah.
He's been there. You put me in, we go on runs guy.
Yeah.
And like there might be some variance here. There is just inherently variance when you play against a team like Indiana that shoots as many threes and runs as hard as they do. So maybe that's the explanation here. But Alex Caruso being a game worst -15 might indicate to me that Carlisle might be, picking a scab in a
Yeah.
way that like just bugs OKC enough. That's one thing I'm gonna be really watching for. The other part of this too, Raj, that I find you on Twitter threw out one of those the Nemhard move that he put on Shea
Oof.
in, was that game one? That was game one, right?
Yes, game 1, the step
And
back 3.
yeah, it
Nasty.
was like double crosses, like the double step back that guys
Yeah,
are allowed to take now. Filthy move that he put
yeah,
on there. And I quote tweeted it, wondering if Indiana would eventually start picking
hunting.
on Shea,
Yeah,
um, for the sake of, by comparison, he's the entry point to OKC's
sure.
defense, and also because of what it might do to Shea's legs
Mhm.
over the course of games, and then by extension over the course of series. And tonight was the first time that I'm looking on Twitter, and a lot of people are going, "Oh man, he looks tired."
Yeah,
And he started getting back to the grifting thing, which kind of indicates to me that he's not quite feeling like, when he's feeling good, he doesn't have to grift. He's a really bleeping good player. But when he starts getting a little bit tired, that's when he does start kind of throwing his body into guys and starting to go after those fouls a little bit more. He looked exhausted at the end of that fourth quarter, and I do kind of wonder, because the Indiana has been picking on him. It's not quite. It's not like what Minnesota was doing to Austin and Luka. That's picking
no.
on somebody. That's bullying somebody. But they're just kind of just nudging him a little bit, and
Yeah,
making him a little bit tired in a way. Like I do this with my son when it's bedtime, where I just throw a little bit of my body weight on him,
okay.
and let him kind of wear himself out, just kind of like pushing and pushing and pushing, and then he kind of realizes like, oh man, my bed is comfortable. He's like, man, this feels good. And I kind of back off. I rub his back a little bit. I rub him on the back of the head. I give him a kiss on the cheek, and I say goodnight, and he doesn't move after that,
Okay.
right? And I kind of wonder if what Indiana is basically doing is just kind of throwing a little bit of extra weight on Shea over the course of these games.
Yeah, yeah, I love that your son is Shea Gilgeous-Alexander in this example, just perfect.
They both
No,
flop, man. I'm telling you, like when Avery takes the toys that
that's where he got it
Miles
from.
is playing with, he just goes,
Yeah.
"Ah!"
You say "and one" on it too? Just, foul!
Yeah, yeah. Jen
But
wants to give him the whistle, but I'm like, no, 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 no. Hey, he's grifting right now. We're good.
yeah,
We
start
are
him off
we are we
early.
are we are abiding ethical
Ethical hoops.
sibling right now.
No, but no, there's definitely like it was the first game play of the game, I believe, the OKC's first possession, and Nemhard has his face like in Shea's jersey, and I think Shea gets an offensive
Oh,
foul.
that's a
But
great
that's
point too. What they're doing
yeah,
to him
yeah,
defensively, yeah.
it's just full on, and it's this. We're just gonna shove you where we can, right? And the game, and I think the whistle was actually really tight in that first half. We got, I think, Nemhard, Siakam, and Neesmith all picked up 3 fouls, all in that first half, just trying to be aggressive within. But no, you're right. There is a war of attrition that's going on, and Shea's their main offensive player. This is a good, because I want to ask you about this. The minutes distribution, Anthony, is fascinating to me. There's some of this where, do you go with what brought you here? Or is it kind of the old school style that I think me and you grew up with, where no, my best players are freaking playing the whole game, right? Like
Yeah,
Chet
as
Holmgren
much as we can.
Chet not passing 35 minutes. I thought he was incredible. J-Dub not playing over 36 minutes. And again, their strength is in their numbers and their team, but still, just the way everyone was struggling. Again, Shea with 40, even at 42 for Shea.
But this is actually, Ross, kind of like the most that you're gonna see that from OKC, because 32 minutes is a lot for Caruso by their standards. He's normally in the 20s.
not in the Denver
Hart
series. He had some 40-minute, I believe, series in
That's
the
true, that's
game
true.
in the Denver
Hartenstein
series.
only at 18 though, like, to your point,
He's
like
getting played off the floor. Like, that's why
yeah,
that number's that low. But
yeah,
the other players though, Jalen Williams, 36 minutes, he was
yeah, that is
incredible.
crazy.
So that's the part that's interesting to me in terms of do they go differently in this game 4, or do they lean on what brought them here? I lean on the I have a best 5 and I need to play that best 5, right? Stop messing around. Kason Wallace, look, good young player, has a really
I don't
bright
think
future as a
Dagno is wired like that. I think he's a dweeb by nature.
you can't
Chet
win 68
Holmgren,
games and be a dweeb though.
what's
68
that?
wins? You can't win 68 wins. You can have 68 wins and be a dweeb still? Can
Mm,
you like
I just it's the collar thing. It's always going to be the collar thing.
yeah.
Two couple notes here. The chat is blowing us up with the OKC turnovers being a big difference. They
Mhm.
normally turn teams over and don't turn the ball over. That is definitely a big difference there. That's a great note to make. Also, to pick up on your Chet point, 0 of 6 from 3-point range for him
Yeah.
tonight, and a lot of those shots he did not look very comfortable on. The final attempt that he took from 3, if I'm not mistaken, also was blocked by Miles Turner,
Yes.
and a like final eruption moment from the Indiana Pacers crowd, which is incredible. The both crowds in this series like makes me look at Lakers fans like, can we try that? Can we try sounding like that? Can we give that a go?
Yeah.
Um, Last thing before we move on here, and this might be something that we spend a little bit of time on because this is more of a Lakers point than it is a Pacers OKC point. But one thing I've been thinking a lot about, Raj, is both teams and both coaches finding a way to manufacture depth. And
Mm,
now I think, to your point a second ago, OKC might be going a little too far in that
sure.
direction. I think Indiana has found a little bit better balance in that regard, in that they definitely are relying on their key players. But I think Carlisle is doing a really good job of finding windows for other guys to just not fuck things up and
Yeah.
give some guys a little bit of rest. And I know a lot of times, like when guys don't play, we default to the appeal to authority fallacy where we're like, yeah, JJ just didn't trust guys and he was right to not trust guys, when he didn't play guys in
Yeah.
that. But you can't tell me that, like, I don't know, like Thomas Bryant played 3 minutes in this game, right? You can't tell me that Jackson Hayes couldn't have given you 3 minutes in Game 5 against Minnesota.
Yeah.
TJ McConnell played 15 minutes in this one. I think McConnell is a better player than Gabe, I think, in total, especially when it comes to usefulness of tools and stuff. But you can't tell me that Gabe couldn't have given you 15 minutes in
Sure.
some of these games, and Ben Mathurin, right, is a very up and down guy, but they don't win this game without him. And Ben Shepherd was somebody who was completely out of the rotation, whether by injury or by situation. And he has found a bit of a role in this series and in these playoffs too for them. And I think these guys are good basketball players, to be absolutely clear, but I do think I don't think that they are just so clearly head and shoulders above some of the guys that the Lakers decided that they just don't need,
Yeah.
and that's something that, heading into next season, one of the things I'm really going to be looking for from JJ Redick is, can you find a way over the course of a season to develop guys or develop enough trust in guys to manufacture depth?
Right. Yeah, that's something I wrote about for today as well for SB Nation and like Benedict Mathurin you mentioned.
Totally knew
a-
that. Was totally ready to ask you
Sure.
that question.
Right. But that's another guy that Carlisle could have easily been like, it's the playoffs. You go stand in the corner and you wait for Halliburton, to create for you. You wait for Nemhard to create for you. But he sees his skill set, right? What is Mathurin if he doesn't have the ball in his hands? Probably not as impactful. And Carlisle gave him the ball and said, "Hey, like you're gonna run the second unit." And he dropped 27 points in the finals game because of the empowerment and the trust. And Mathurin had a really good regular season, right? I think they mentioned he was their fourth or third leading scorer in the regular season, but he was hurt for a lot of this season. And he found a way to contribute. You mentioned Thomas Bryant, right? And yeah, it's not about all these are super great NBA players, right? I bet if you drop Thomas Bryant on the Lakers, JJ Redick probably does not play him at all, right? Guy who doesn't defend,
Right.
can't switch. But he is a spacer. He can hit timely threes. And I think something that the Lakers should look at, and it's tough to kind of really evaluate this, but a lot of the Pacers players and OKC, they have really high motor, right? And I think that's what allows them to play, right? There's a motor skill. People don't really see motor as a skill, but just that they play hard and they play one speed at all times, where you can kind of evaluate everything else. You can work around everything else if a guy plays just extremely hard. I think that kind of mitigates a lot of the other issues they have on the floor. But you're right, both teams have found ways to contribute, with their bench. Isaiah Joe came in, hit 2 big time threes for OKC. They just have a trust in their team. But yeah, Indiana's found a way to just get contributions from all these type of guys, and they've stayed ready. You mentioned Ben Shepherd, right? Comes in and guards SGA and doesn't he picks up right where Nembhard leaves off. That is extremely impressive for a
Yeah.
young player to understand kind of his role within that. Obi Toppin didn't play well tonight, but had that huge putback dunk. They just have a lot of athleticism and guys who all believe. And Halliburton has headed the snake. He's just dishing out, and they found some success there. But yeah, both these coaches are also been coaching for a very long time. Obviously, have a lot more experience than JJ does. The farther we go in the playoffs, Anthony, the more psychotic the 5 players in the second half of a playoff game looks, right? These teams are going 10-11 deep in the finals. That was the first round, right? And it's just yeah, so hopefully all those things kind of lead to a better season next year. But yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff to take from these finals, and that's definitely one of them. This is a very deep team that have found contributions, in little spots to help not have the game, get out of hand.
Yeah, I think it's a wiring issue, right? I think the most successful coaches in these playoffs are wired in a way where it's like, let's find you a way to help us. Whereas the less successful coaches in these playoffs have been like, you can't help us,
Sure.
and look, JJ's a rookie, not just NBA coach. He's a rookie coach. That was his first time put into that situation. He also applies a ton of pressure on himself, just because of the way that he is just kind of naturally wired. Dan Wojcicki came on the show and we talked. I thought we had a really good conversation about that a couple of weeks ago, and I think one of the things that I joked and I said that JJ is going to have to find some zen,
Mm.
because I remember how old were you during the three-peat? Just at a do you consciously remember the three-peat?
I was not watching basketball during the three-peat
Okay.
at all. Yeah, that's one of my
How about
regret. Well, I didn't know anything about it,
yeah?
but yeah,
How about the back-to-back, like when they won in against Orlando and Boston? Do you
yeah, I do. Yes, I vividly remember those. Those
I'm
were
asking because I'm asking because I want to know what you remember from Phil's coaching approach.
yeah.
And
From Phil, I wasn't in tune as much as I am now for
yeah,
sure. But what you go off of is all the stuff that Kobe and the team talks about. Very much a macro approach, right? Very much
yeah,
not very hands-on during the game, but very hands-on during practice, very focused, very detail-oriented in practice, but in games very much lets the players decide. And the triangle, because was kind of a representation of that, right? It's a very much a read and react system where the coach calls no plays. Like the triangle,
yeah,
there's no plays towards that. And I think that's what worked well with Phil. And I think he was just an amazing person, a manager, just really
yes,
understand personalities, giving each person a different book to read based on what their personality is and can connect
yeah.
with you. And yeah, that's what I remember from Phil.
Well, the reason I bring up Phil is because once you cracked his rotation, you were in his
Mm,
rotation. And
sure.
it was like you would have bad games sometimes, you would have good games sometimes, and there were ways to earn yourself more minutes or less minutes or whatever. But from what I can really remember, and watching them, and again, you're talking about talk when you hear guys talk about playing
Yeah.
for Phil, it was like a lot of our work was done in practice where we had to work our ass off to prove to him that we should be in his system. We should be in
Mm.
his rotation. And then he just kind of tried to find ways to just kind of make it work within his system. Um and I think that, as we head into this new CBA world and potentially the next evolution of the sport where depth really does maybe matter a lot, because I'm watching this Indiana Pacers team play, Raj, and their turbo button is on at all times. Like
Yeah.
I'm not even sure turbo was a thing on 2K anymore. I don't know. I haven't played 2K in like
Yeah. You can sprint,
5
I'm
years.
sure. I'm
I
sure
don't
there's
know.
sprint. There has to be a sprint button.
I remember when I was like when I was playing, one of my favorite moves to utilize was literally tapping the turbo button, because that was the hesitation move, and it was
Oh,
like a
yeah,
cheat
yeah.
code. You could just always get by guys that way.
Right.
It's like my favorite Kobe first step move was when he would, and Jen and I would play one-on-one, and I would put the ball way down low, and she would be playing defense, and I'd be like, "Babe, it's coming." It's coming, and she just start laughing, and it's like boom, just like hitting turbo, just go. But Indiana, I'm watching them playing, they're always on turbo. They're just like
Yeah.
leveling that turbo button. It is duct taped down, and they're able to play that way because every single player in this rotation has earned that trust from Rick Carlisle. And that's the thing that, like, that might be the next evolution of the sport. That might be the next thing that we might be looking towards. Is, yeah, historically you rely more heavily on your best players, but actually the best use of the regular season in this era where it's like just get to the playoffs, stay out of the play in, and then if possible get yourself best seeding that you can. The best use of the regular season is actually to gain the trust of if you're a player, to gain the trust of your coach, so that by the time you get to the playoffs, you have your 8 to 10 man rotation,
Yeah.
preferably maybe in this new era 10, closer to 10. And that way your entire team is wired to play at the 11th gear.
Yeah, Indiana has this breakneck speed, Anthony. When they go Siakam at the 5, right? And I think they put him next to TJ McConnell. And it just becomes I think the biggest like NASCAR race is in Indiana, isn't it? I believe so. But like they just become this super fast team that's able to really get down the floor. They don't go to it as often, right? They didn't live by the small ball as we do, but they definitely use it in bits and pieces. And yeah, that Siakam at the center position just really gives them a super boost. Another thing, just when you were talking about Indiana, something that stood out to me. These are the two teams. Memphis was actually number 1, but their numbers were so skewed because the playoffs were so strange for them. They went out in 5, and they had that huge blowout win against OKC, where everyone's like, "Oh, what's wrong with the Thunder?" And then the Thunder really took care of them. But if you take out Memphis, these are the fastest paced teams in the playoffs, right? And the Lakers were second to last. They were 14th out of 15th, way down. And I think something that stands out is there is something to like there's just nonstop with these teams where after a made basket, it's all right, let's go. Like who cares? Like made basket, we're pushing the ball up. And there was this play, I don't think it was tonight in game 2 or game 1 where someone got a layup for OKC, and then Aaron Nesmith took a 3 on the other end with 18 on the clock. I'm like, the Lakers offense doesn't even start their attack till maybe 11, 12, right?
Yeah.
Like just
Yeah.
all right, what are we doing?
And
Now
man, the
comes
Lakers are flying tonight. They just started an offensive set at 15.
yeah, yeah, and so that is another thing that really stands out to me, and hopefully, with the training camp, just understanding of the roster you have, you're able to kind of implement more quick hitters, as coaches say, and stuff like that. But I just thought that 100% stood out as well. There's a level of versatility in the attack Indiana has. We spoke about this after game 1, where like even in the fourth quarter, Nemhard had huge shots. TJ McConnell stole the ball 3 times on an inbound somehow, but they just beat you in all these effort and motor and taxing ways where they win the war of attrition against you, where you're gassed and tired. You're like, is that Siakam sprinting down the wing? There's 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and he's absolutely in a full sprint going down the wing, getting an and one layup. So they're going to be needed to be dealt with. I still think OKC comes and wins this series, Anthony, but man, 2-1 advantage with a home game in game 4. They have a real nice driver's seat opportunity here.
All right, let's shift gears here. Let's segue over to a report that I dropped today or yeah, I guess yesterday. No, it's 11 my time, 9 yours. I dropped a report for Clutch Points about LeBron's player option and the branches that's gonna sprout off of that. And um I started the column or article, whatever you want to call it, um, by saying that I feel kind of gross, like doing anything that might pressure a player into taking a pay cut. You know,
Mhm.
that said, you know, LeBron's not unique in this regard, but players do increase their chance at winning a championship the less money they take. You know, that's just the nature of the game here. And um, now we're even in a spot where fans, like we just saw with the Jaren Jackson Jr. thing, fans are almost like rooting against their guy at times to win certain awards because that
Yeah.
means a different level of max, and that's kind of where we're at. I think that's a CBA issue that needs to be resolved. But um, so I the reason I wrote about this today, Raj, is because before like over the last like couple of weeks or so, I have noticed that most people I have spoken to are just kind of assuming LeBron is just going to opt into his contract. Um,
Mhm.
and I didn't necessarily see the logic in it. Like I didn't necessarily like, I don't, if you're LeBron James and you could negotiate yourself a deal and get yourself an extra year potentially of security, probably another year of having a no trade clause, all that stuff. Why not do that? Like I didn't understand why everybody was assuming that LeBron would just kind of pass up on that opportunity. The two kind of theories that I ran into was that, he's getting ready to potentially retire after the season. And if he signs another 1-1, that second year of the contract would be pretty tough for him to turn down. The other theory is that like maybe if he doesn't opt in, that the Lakers wouldn't offer him the same kind of deal that he is on right now.
The no trade
Um,
clause, right.
and yeah, please, especially regarding the no trade clause, all of that stuff. And I get some of that. I it still didn't quite square logically with me. So I did some asking around, and I will say that like most people that I've spoken to have indicated that they think LeBron is going to opt in.
Mhm.
And this is one of those spots where like I remember this with Spencer Dinwiddie. Um, where my report at the time was that people around the league believed that Dinwiddie was going to go to Dallas, and people close to the Lakers believed that he was going to go to the Lakers after I think it was the Raptors waived him outright.
Okay.
And then so my like that was me. I try to offer that little extra layer of transparency here without going into specific sourcing of like where I'm getting information from. And this is one of those spots where like people I talk to around the league believe that LeBron is opting in. And then there is
Mm.
optimism closer to the Lakers that LeBron will opt out and that they can have a conversation with him about whatever kind of contract he wants, but that also works for everybody involved moving forward. Um,
Yeah.
and I wanted to I started my article with this, and I want to absolutely hammer this home. I do not want to be the sports voice out there who says to somebody like LeBron, coming off of an all NBA season, coming off of a year where he finished sixth in MVP voting. I don't want to be the guy telling him you need to take less. I want to make sure I'm not that guy. However, like if your top priority is winning, you kind of have to.
Yeah.
And that's like this kind of icky spot that we find ourselves in. So all of this is to say, just in terms of pure information, and then Raj and I will continue our analysis from here. But I don't think it is a foregone conclusion that LeBron opts into his contract next year, his player option for next year, in the way that most seem to.
Yeah.
And I do think that at the very least, LeBron might be open to taking a very small haircut if it like puts the Lakers below the first apron in the way that he did last year when it put them below the second one. But anyway, outside of that, I wanted to ask you this, Raj.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of pressure should somebody like LeBron feel having made almost $1 billion in NBA salary, being worth $1 billion outside of that with his Nike contract, having accomplished everything he has and still being really bleeping good at the sport?
Yeah.
Should a guy like that feel any pressure from fans to take a pay cut?
No, I don't think
I
LeBron
agree.
feels any pressure, to take any type of pay cut. And I know there was very good reporting on this last year. We talked about this extensively on this show in terms of who he would be willing to take a pay cut for. Right,
Yeah.
the names were like those three dragon memes, where it's like two real ones and one like
Well, it was
one that.
four because it was like
Oh
it
yes,
was James
DeRozan was in
Harden,
there,
DeMar DeRozan, Klay Thompson,
and Jonas
and like
Valanciunas.
Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah. Right. And so like that was the reporting last year. And again, it's similar type of numbers in terms of what the discount would have to be, right? And this discount isn't, Anthony, in the 1 to 2 million range for the salary that they wanted to open up. That was in the 10-11 million dollar range in terms of what he would have had to give it up. So no, I don't think LeBron has any pressure to do that. I think there's an interesting angle here as well in terms of I think the Lakers would like to be informed in terms of what his plans are.
Yeah.
Right. And I think opting in would, I think, show a lot of the cards. And so I don't know what LeBron's game would be against the Lakers front office in terms of that, cat and mouse game, but I'm guessing a opt-in would signal retirement, right? I mean, it would have to.
That has to be one of the takeaways, potentially.
It would have to, right? Because LeBron, in my opinion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Anthony, I think LeBron can pick his contract. I highly doubt that the Lakers would have him opt out and then be like, gotcha, no trade clause now. You know what I mean? Like, I doubt that's how this works at all. That's not how business works in any situation, let alone with LeBron James on your team. So I don't think there's a fear of losing the no trade clause. I think LeBron can opt out and get whatever I think he can only sign 1+1s now, if I have that correct. So yeah, so I would expect him to be able to do that. It's just, what does he want to do? And again, it's middle of June. These are, stuff that he doesn't have to decide for, a month and a half or whatever it is. So whenever that extension is up for him. But yeah, I don't think he has any pressure to. The NBA, this is a longer conversation, but there should be some where, the advantages of getting all NBA, all this stuff doesn't affect the cap at all, but that's not the world we live in. But in any case, yeah, I don't think LeBron's taking a pay cut. But you're right. Like, if you want to build the most optimized team, then yeah, LeBron has to take a pay cut. But LeBron can look at it like, okay, who's the player that you're getting for me? What's his name?
Yeah.
Is it Clint Capella? Like, probably name doesn't.
Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Yes, Nickeil Alexander, who's a nice name, I think, to us online, and who really, like, Lakers need a wing. Let's go get him. But to LeBron James, I don't know how I don't think LeBron James sees Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the same breath as Klay Thompson and the other names. I think he sees them. I hope he sees them in the Jonas Valanciunas breath. But in any case, the other names on that list, I don't think he sees them in the.
He's slightly above Jonas.
Yeah, it's slightly above Jonas.
Thing was very clearly a clutch favor to Anthony Davis. They wanted AD to have a starting center next to him.
Sure, but the reporting was he was put in that conversation. But in any case, yeah, I don't think LeBron's taking a pay cut. My only question is it a 1+1 or is he re-signing? That's a very fascinating thing. The Lakers already are getting Anthony a discount on Luka, basically, right? Because since he was traded, he can no longer sign the Supermax, which highly decreases his, the amount that he's on your cap for. And yeah, that's where I think these conversations are going. But to me, the most fascinating thing is the Lakers and their management having to really just sit back and wait and like, because I don't know if you agree with me, but building a team with LeBron next year versus him on a 2 year is completely like those are two completely different things. The players you sign, the deals you give them, the players you can trade, right? Does Rui Hachimura become more or less like a guy you want to flip if LeBron is or isn't on your roster? Those are things that you have to kind of decide. You're also on Luka's timeline, which how does that manufacture in all this? But yeah, to me, LeBron has no pressure. He seems completely at peace, as he should. And I just would highly doubt he offers another pay cut this summer with him walking out the door. Not this season, then it must be the following season. I can't see him playing till 43. Maybe he does. Who knows? But yeah.
So I'll take you guys back, and I should have grabbed the clip when I could have. But essentially, Raj, you and I talked about this after the Luka trade.
Okay.
And the point at that time that I was making was that, like, while all of that pay cut conversation was taking place as the Lakers were pursuing Klay Thompson, after they didn't get him, I had somebody who was in the know, say, look, LeBron's top priority right now is winning a championship with Bronny sitting over there on the bench. That would be a very special moment. And the closer the Lakers get to a legitimate championship pursuit, the more willing LeBron potentially becomes to take something a little bit less. To the people who were thinking that like he was ever going to take a, what would it be, like a
Like a
what
15 million now.
nine figures is millions, 10 figures is tens of millions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like to the people who thought that he was going to take a 10-figure pay cut, like I just don't think that has ever been realistic. He is
Me.
trying to make every red penny that he can to eventually be the majority owner or a very loud owner of an NBA team someday, specifically in Vegas. Like that has not been a secret now for a long time. And so anyway, like when you and I talked about this, however long ago after the Luka trade, it was like, yeah, I guess 9 figures would be hundreds of $1 million. Fair, Desmond. Thank you. So it'd be 8 figures would be like the tens of millions.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's not going to take an 8-figure hit. Like
No.
I just don't think that has ever been, and it's certainly, even if you or I don't think that that's realistic, that's not the kind of thing that the Lakers can like budget for. They can't go into an offseason thinking they're like, all right, this is the year that LeBron really gives back. And it's like, no, he's not going to do that. You can't
Sure.
plan for that financially. So the reason that like you and I talked about it in the first place is because they traded for Luka, and the thinking was at the time, hey, this is pretty damn close to a championship. Now we found out that it wasn't all that close. They went into a postseason with Jackson Hayes at the starting center, and the postseason ended as such.
Yeah.
But at this point right now, and I think the point that you made a second ago is really important, and it's a similar one that we can make about Luka too. In this regard, is that they're going to have to approach Luka and say, here's the work we did. Here's the dotted line that you can sign on for a long-term extension. And it's
Yeah.
the same thing with LeBron, where it's like, here's what we know we can do if you take X amount less. And, the problem with, like, I saw Tim Duncan as an example. I saw Tom Brady as an example. I saw Dirk Nowitzki as an example. In Tom Brady's case, in football, like, salaries, like players are a lot more fungible, and you can kind of replace guys, and Tom Brady taking less matters, but it doesn't necessarily, because you can just draft new white receivers, and I said white there to be clear, and they would be pretty good. And then like when it comes to Tim Duncan and Dirk Nowitzki, Duncan took a little bit less, and that was to keep that core intact. That was a
Yeah.
proven core that he was keeping together. In Dirk's case, he took a little bit less, and Dallas didn't do shit with the money.
Yeah, he
And
probably regrets
he's
that.
just
Yeah.
sitting there like, all right, well, I get ownership now, right? Right. And for like LeBron, either the Lakers are going to have to show him they can't go to him with like, all right, here's the core that we can keep intact if you take a little bit less. So now they basically have to go to him and say, this is the player that we can get. What do you think?
Yeah.
And then again, to get back to like to the beginning part of this conversation, if LeBron says that's not worth it to me, they have to respect it. He's LeBron fucking James, and he was just in the MVP conversation.
And I really, in my opinion, Anthony, you can't go to LeBron and go. I know for us that it makes a lot of sense from a, spreadsheet basketball sense, but I don't think you go to LeBron and go, "Hey, we can get Nikhil Alexander Walker. You ready to take X
Yeah.
amount less?" I don't think that's a conversation that can happen. This has to be LeBron coming to the Lakers and going, "Look, I want to help our flexibility, so I'm willing to take this
That's
amount
a
less."
great point. Yeah.
I don't think the Lakers can go up to him and offer this as a plan. I think that's just not how this works. LeBron just made second team All NBA. You can quibble with the awards or whatever, and I do think there's a level of LeBron needs regular season help in a way that's extremely important, and I think that's how the team should be built to kind of protect him and Luka and Austin as well in terms of their defense. But yeah, I just don't think that's something that the Lakers can come up with. And again, I think what he does with this decision is extremely insightful. Now he may, Anthony, with something he can do is opt out and then just get more guaranteed money. That he could do that, right? That is an option where it's less money for the next 2 years. LeBron, again, the part about this that's so unprecedented just in history, it's just never happened in the NBA before, is LeBron is still at such a level that he commands a max, right?
Yeah.
Usually at this level, they don't. So where even if they have a max left on their deal, they'll opt out and they'll sign for more guaranteed money at a less per year annually because that's the way they kind of command and they can get that extra deal. LeBron is still hovering around all NBA status, which is max level status. And that's what he deserves. Now, in a team building sense, yes, there is more advantages to being under the apron and that stuff like that they'll have to kind of discuss. But I think LeBron's opting in. That would be my just prediction. That just makes a lot of sense. But you never know. LeBron always says he's close to retirement and then the season kicks on. And I think there's just this thing that goes in his brain. And this is just what he's done all his life. And he looks at his body and goes, I'm good. I can do this again. And I think that's fascinating as hell for the Lakers who have to operate under whatever his decision is. And Anthony,
Mhm.
you're more behind the scenes than I am. I don't think LeBron is giving the Lakers, everyday updates on
Okay.
how he feels. So they're gonna have to kind of operate, without knowing. But I think that's super interesting in terms of team building, in terms of Luka, in terms of who you get, who you sign, who you trade for. All that really hinges on is LeBron playing one more year too. You got that. That's gonna be huge for this summer.
You and I, Raj, are having this conversation on June 11th.
Uh huh.
The NBA draft is on June 25th.
Mm-hmm.
I think we probably get this decision from LeBron at least a couple of days or so before the draft.
Before the draft. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be my educated guess.
When is he obligated
The
to have
29th.
the also by the 29th he has to make a decision. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um and yeah, like Dark Galaxy is asking Anthony, do you anticipate a lot of moves on draft night? That's part of why I think we get a decision here from LeBron uh a couple of days or so or a day or so before draft night so that the Lakers can have all of their ducks in a row for whatever they have to do. Last thing, Raj, before we get out of here, I wanted to ask you this because I'm getting a lot of shit for saying I don't believe in Dalton.
Okay.
Um, and I guess for a second, I guess I can try to explain myself. uh, beyond what I tweeted out, which I
Okay.
still stand by, but still, like, I think there's a little bit more context to it that you can't offer up in a, I think it's a 256 now character tweet or whatever it is.
Oh, now you could
Um,
just print a whole page.
well,
Like
yeah,
there's no
right, but like,
there's
nobody's clicking show more.
oh,
Like, let's
okay,
be clear.
gotcha. Okay.
Um, so my tweet originally was that, like, Dalton is a 24, is 24 years old
Okay.
and was never particularly close to all rookie team conversations, first or second team. And I
Mm,
and this is a really bad class, right? Um, and that to me is kind of telling. Now, to take you guys behind the scenes a little bit, the Lakers traded him, literally traded him. They rescinded
sure.
the trade because the guy they traded for's knees were made out of wet toilet paper, but they traded Dalton Knecht, and they traded him for three reasons. First and foremost, they traded him because it was a means to get the lob center that Luka wanted. So that needs to be put,
That's
pretty
number
high up
1.
there on the list. But they also traded Dalton specifically because his basketball IQ is not where it needs to be, and because he wasn't as good a shooter as the Lakers thought that they were signing up for. Now some of that might be a rhythm thing in your first year. Some of that might be a in and out of the rotation kind of a thing when it comes to rhythm. There are all kinds of reasons to offer up for, like, why that was the case. But at the end of the day, the Lakers literally traded this guy.
Sure.
Um, and that cannot be ignored. And I'm told it's likely they probably trade him this summer too.
Mhm.
Um, but regardless, I'm out on Dalton.
Okay.
I don't see it with him. I see it physically. He could be a really bleeping good shooter. He finishes really, really well around the rim. He has all of these offensive skills, but also JJ Redick stormed onto a court and had to scream at him. That's your fucking play
Sure.
on a set that they were calling for Dalton.
Sure.
So and then that was something that happened in front of the scene, like on stage. That was something that happened on stage. Behind the scenes, there's plenty of stuff that you hear about this guy that, like, would indicate that he just he's going to have to grow a lot mentally if he wants to stick around in the NBA.
I I
All of
think
that said, should
yeah.
I be more in on Dalton than I am?
More in so, I think all that stuff is fair, and I think Dalton is staying in LA, which is nice. He's, enjoying the beaches of California and hooping in
Yeah, good
in
call,
Venice
Dalton.
in Venice
You're a
and all that.
millionaire in Southern California. Like,
Well, a lot of people leave, you know what I mean? So it's cool to see him kind of stay around, and he's hooping in Venice and stuff like that. But I do think, again, I think players like this and rookies like this on teams that are trying to contend and trying to win, right? The learning curve, it's much like the
steeper.
time the time you have to learn is a lot less, right? The every play matters in a way where if he was on the Washington Wizards, does he make first team all rookie? Maybe. Can that guy go and average 20 on some bad team? Sure. Right. Like, and I think he had a stretch where he was starting for this team. Anthony, there was a place where he was very pivotal towards wins during.
Mhm.
I think D'Lo was out or Austin was out. I'm kind of misremembering, but he was inserted into the starting lineup, averaged around 20 a game, I think, for a 2-week stretch. I believe if you take out his
That was also extremely low leverage basketball. It needs to be pointed out.
sure, but it was important for the Lakers. They needed his scoring, right? The Lakers were, I think they were hovering around 500 before he was inserted, and they went on a nice run, a 4 or 5 game win streak. I believe he had some clutch shots against the Spurs, I believe on the road or at home. I think he wasn't as advertised, but I think if you expected a positive defensive player, then I think you just had
No,
right.
I
So
never, yeah.
sure, but I'm saying people say he's not a two-way player, which yes, that is 100% true. I think there's steps he can take to improve on that end. I don't like to put ceilings on a player again that was a rookie that obviously was a late bloomer, right? And I think he had a great final year in college, but as a guy that definitely bloomed late in terms of his draft stock. But yeah, I still like him as a player, and I think you need guys at that level of contract. Like that's the whole reason first rounders are so valuable is their contract and how less expensive they are for in comparison to the rest of the league. But yeah, I understand if you're out on him. That makes a lot of sense. I would wonder what happens if he's never traded. Felt like that took some time for him to kind of get over and re-enter the team. It never felt like he was reinstated in terms of feeling back like he was a part of the basketball team. I mean, when you're traded, right? You're off the team. I think he touch down in Charlotte. I don't even remember if he actually left,
He
but
did. He
yeah,
was walking the halls wearing
yes.
Charlotte's gear. Yeah.
Right. So, he left and he came back and they tried to kind of put him back in, but never really connected. And then JJ just decided this guy's not playing in the playoffs for me. You're not playing. I think he played 4 total minutes in the 5 games, and all that I believe was in garbage time or super late when the game was already out of hand. So I'd love again for him to stay in the Lakers kind of ecosystem and get another year training and kind of
But
running
what
under
is
this.
that ecosystem? Like, there's a comment here from Omaris
Mhm.
Hall saying, "Watch the Celtics get Dalton, and that MFer is going to cook." It's like, yeah, they develop their guys really, really well. Peyton Pritchard is a development success story. Luke Cornett is a development success story. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, both of those guys really developed over, in that system and in that organization. In the Lakers sense, like, you have Austin is a big development story.
Mhm.
I think that's a big win for the org. Max Christie was certainly on the right path, and then he got
Yeah.
and then he got traded. So I guess you can also say him. But Maxwell Lewis wasn't really going anywhere. We'll see what comes of Bronny here soon. I don't know that I can say that, specifically or emphatically that yeah, sure. I can't wait to see Dalton develop in this situation where right now, Raj, you have LeBron James at 41. You
Mhm.
have Luka Doncic at 26, 27, right? You have Austin at also at about 26.
Sure.
Um, you have, like, now's the window, now's the time. And I don't know if they have necessarily time to wait around and hope that maybe, just maybe, Dalton can identify shell drills.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, he's definitely gonna have to improve his defensive awareness. I mean, that's clear, and I do think that's something that can be worked down with time in the film room and just kind of understanding. It felt like the game was a little too fast for him a lot of times on the floor, but I mean, just on paper, like a unconscious shooter next to Luca should be
Yeah,
a
that's a good
great
point.
fit. And I didn't really, I gotta check the lineup data, but I don't remember too many lineups that were optimized with him on the court. And again, it's hard to optimize both him and Luca and Austin, right? That's a tough thing to
Too
create
many white
anyway.
guys.
Yeah, well, yeah, too many just below average defensive players. But again, I don't think he's in the. I think there's a world where people want to just give him away, and I do think there's talent there. And the Lakers, like, they not only traded him for a center, Anthony, like they traded him, obviously included with a first round pick, but they traded him for their center of the future. I mean, if you give that much stuff up for Mark Williams, you're paying Mark Williams, right? You give up a
Mhm.
first, Dalton, and a swap. But like, Mark Williams on a great contract, he was, but you're paying Mark Williams if you give up all that stuff for him. And Dalton was obviously included in that. That's a guy that Charlotte, I think, really wanted. Even with their press releases trying to get the trade back on in terms of the league wide, but yeah, I saw enough there where I think there's an offensive package to kind of use him. Again, he's not going to be a guy that you can throw out and be like, he's your two-way star. Maybe he develops into that. He has the tools for a 6'7". I think he has a pretty okay wingspan. He's athletic enough, right? It's just obviously the tools don't mesh with the basketball IQ yet, which is fine. But yeah, I would still like him again in our just ecosystem of maybe another training camp with Luca and get more acclimated to the plays running and just not have the I'm traded kind of thing on his head. Can kind of come back and reset. But I understand
For a
your
different
position.
team.
Yeah, I understand your position and a lot of people's position on this. He's not untradeable, obviously, but I still think there was enough there where, again, this rookie guy on a team that was very serious about winning. And you got to kind of look at it more through that frame, right? How many rookies could play in that situation? I don't know. But he wasn't ready for huge playoff minutes and just high leverage basketball games. But I saw enough to where there's an offensive package in there somewhere that maybe the Lakers can bring out. But you're totally right about his age. He's what, 24? Like that's definitely a player that's should be closer to where their ceiling is, other than betting on potential. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll
I
just see.
look, the 2-point finishing is a real stat, and that's including all the wild drives and dunk attempts that
Yeah.
were either set aside or he threw off the back of the rim.
Sure.
He was still one of the better finishers on the team, and maybe like league wide at his position, if I remember correctly. But like, yeah, I think I can understand. It's funny. The context on this stuff is really funny, Raj. He's 24 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And if I say I'm out on him, I'm an idiot. Right? Austin is 2 years older and has accomplished a hell of a lot more. And if I was to
Sure.
tweet out, I'm out on Austin, I think I'd get a lot more agreement.
But
And it
it's
has
in a
everything to
different
do with
tier though.
expectations.
Well, they're in different tiers, right? Austin is looking at a $30 to $35 million contract and was your core pieces of your team, right? Dalton
Yeah.
Knecht, like saying you're out on Dalton, like the bar is so low for him, and you're saying I don't think he can even reach ninth
That.
man status, right?
Yeah.
That's why the pushback came in. If you say you're out on Austin, I think people think you're more, and I believe you would be kind of inferring to his place in terms of as your second star. That's what the difference is. But again, Dalton's contract, like on a cheap 3-year deal, like that's valuable, even in an 82 game regular season kind of sample. That's important to have guys you can just throw in and go, okay, go be a microwave scorer for tonight. I think that's useful. Doesn't mean that's untradeable, but it's a useful player to have on your team, even if you think he's not playoff viable in that sense.
I think you can get microwave scorers on the minimum.
That's what I mean. That's what we thought with Shake Milton, but that's not true. Like, there's a lot of guys that we think are buckets, but you watch them every night and you go, how's that guy still earning like NBA deals? You know what I mean? It's like, he's
But
sold
that
as a
also,
scorer.
Raj, might be a less valuable skill now. Like it might, like yesteryear's, microwave scorer might be today's, Jordan Goodwin small window defender.
Sure.
So I don't know. I think this sport is all of sports. They're all always evolving. But I wanted to pick your brain about Dalton. Anything, Raj, before we get out of here that you want to plug your work that you're doing for Silver Screen?
Yeah, so I just went up today. I went and rewatched the first 2 games of the NBA Finals and wrote about kind of what the Lakers can learn from these 2 teams. And Anthony, what I came away with was we're pretty far away from where both teams are playing, and
Do you think
how
Dalton
both.
would play for either of these teams?
Ooh, that's a good question. So can Dalton come in and do what Isaiah Joe's doing? Isaiah Joe's averaging, I think, 6 minutes per game in the playoffs. In the finals, he averaged like 21 minutes a game in the regular season. So he's been pretty much essentially benched by Mark Daigneault. It's funny reading, like, following other teams' fan bases, because like one game you see them complain about his minutes, and the next game they're like, well, why did he play? Or like, why didn't he play? He hit his
Why didn't
first
he
2
play?
shots.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like, why can't Dalton have that role where he just comes in as a shooter? You're not expecting much
Well,
defensively.
look, to your point, Raj, like that's what we talked about earlier about like finding
Right.
something for somebody to do, right? Um, I remember when I was working retail and I was at Men's Warehouse long enough to where like I became like a pseudo manager or whatever.
Right.
And like you would look at these younger idiots who were standing there on their phones and you're like, is there anything you can be doing that would be productive for the store right now? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like always looking at them, I was like, hey, look, eventually we're gonna have to close, right? So, what if y'all just started working on closing stuff now so that by the time it's time to close, we get out of here like 5-10 minutes earlier? You know,
Sure.
we give that a go. And sometimes it worked out. Sometimes nobody else would come into the store and the store would be all ready to be closed up and we would be able to just get out of there right at like 9:02. Um, Other times they'd, we'd be in the middle of doing all that stuff, and then somebody would come in and we'd have to put all the clothes back out for a full setup. And my management would blow up in my face. But the key there was like, I think the best managers or the best, people in leadership positions find something for everybody to do across your entire team, right? Not just rotation, but entire team.
Yeah.
And I, to your point, as far as like, can Dalton just come in and give you 5 minutes, hit a couple of threes, and then go sit down over there? Like, maybe.
So his career high is higher than I, thought it was. It's 37 this season. He scored over 17 points. Was it 15, 16 times? He has over 7 games of more than 5 threes a game. Like, these are numbers of a player that's extremely helpful. Like, as much as shooting has been, spread across the league, how many times do teams lose because they shoot 20% from three? How the Lakers did it as well, right? They had games where they just got, like, I think my whole argument is the Lakers lost because they couldn't score against Minnesota. As much as the
Hmm.
defense was an issue, I would have loved. I'm a proponent of Dalton at least getting a chance in that series. Hell, like, don't you think Rick Carlisle and why am I blinking on the other
Mark Dagnall.
Mark Dagnall would have at least tried Dalton Connect in that series if they were coaching the Lakers? Not saying, not attacking JJ, but I think those two would have looked down their bench and go, wait, I have a flamethrower on my bench. Yeah, I'm gonna see if it works. Let me see if it burns something. And
But
so
then sometimes that flamethrower turns right around and just burns his teammates on defense. Like, sometimes that flamethrower just like combusts. And
but
it's like, Dalton, you missed 4 straight defensive rotations. How did you even do that? And it's like,
that's the risk reward of a theoretical flamethrower, right? It's just you hope it's burning enough to kind of offset, what it does on the other end. But yeah, I just think if he got an opportunity, I think it would have been nice. And I think I really do trust, like, if Dalton gets an open three, I think he can confidently hit that at a good percentage. And you put that around two of the best playmakers to ever exist, that should be able to at least stem you from some tides in terms of the bench runs and stuff like that. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying Dalton's some crazy great NBA rotational player, but you look at his numbers, Anthony. He had a host of really good games, a host of them in wins that helped the team when they were kind of in trouble of losing. So I still think there's a good player there, but I understand if the Lakers have to move on. Again, you list the Lakers assets. We did this, I think, a few pods ago. It's like Austin, a huge gap bridge in terms of like a canyon gap, and it's the first round pick and
the
Dalton.
Grand
It's
Canyon, yeah.
the Grand Canyon, yes, which I've been to, actually. Beautiful place to go to. But yeah, it's a huge Grand Canyon gap.
Did you
And then it's like,
rewatch your film of the Grand Canyon? Damn it, I could have taken this angle on this hike. Shoot.
what's crazy, it was like, I think, so it went from Vegas, and I think it was like an 8-hour ride one way and then like 8 hours back, or some long bus drive. But super super cool thing that everyone should go and experience. But yeah, I just he's one of the Lakers top assets around the league. So it makes sense that he might be traded. I think he had a better season than people credit him for, even with the low IQ and all that stuff.
Basketball IQ. Well, maybe IQ, but basketball IQ for sure.
Yes, basketball IQ. Excuse me.
All right. we did get not unfortunately, but we did get a super comment here, which means we get to play this. BG the Kid. Some players can't grasp team defense. Randall Westbrook comes to mind. Better off with replacement level players who don't mess up and are competent. There are only so many of those that you can get, though. Like, that's a part of this. Is I see both sides of this debate.
Yeah.
To me, I think there are like barriers for entry, and I don't think Dalton meets that right now when it comes to basketball IQ. That isn't to say that he can't have moments, because he is, Raj, an incredibly skilled basketball player.
Yeah.
He's a great shooter. He has incredible athleticism, especially when you compare him to other great jump shooters.
Yeah.
Um, I think he has a great touch around the basket and all those things. Like all of his skills, it's that video of like, all right, describe your significant other in pours of water into a glass, and it's like, you know, personality is so much and
Mm.
looks is so much, and like all of Dalton's is on the offensive side of the glass, and it's like, all right, show me like how much goes into, like show me Dalton's defensive and mental skill set,
You
and it's like you take a syringe and it's like
just throw the glass on the floor. Just there's no water in there.
yeah. But yeah, like I like those. He's a tricky player to kind of talk about that way. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think all of this is fairly moot because he is probably not going to be a Laker at the end of the summer. Because they need guys that they can more confidently bank on, and I just don't think he's that.
I think that's fair. This would also be the second straight first round pick that they completely, depending on what the value is that they get back, right?
Yeah,
Second straight pick round pick that they completely whiff on. And I'm not saying they're wrong in the JHS, although I still, JHS still
we'll
posting his
see.
workouts and all that
We'll
stuff.
see.
So we'll see what happens with him. And, and I think Dalton obviously showed a lot more. But the interesting part of this, just to make your point, who stole his minutes, Anthony? It was Jordan Goodwin. You're talking about barrier of entry, a
Yeah.
guy, two-way player, right? Wasn't even in the league. Made it through South Bay and made it all the way to take Dalton Knecht, a first round picks minutes in the regular season and in the playoffs, right? Jordan Goodwin was a playoff rotation guy as well. So that kind of shows you, because I bet if Dalton and Jordan Goodwin played one-on-one, Dalton would absolutely fry him,
Damn it. I
right?
hate it when you do this, Raj, because you make these good points when I'm trying to wrap up a podcast. And now I'm thinking about like what this reflects on JJ Redick, because I think at the end of the day, like Redick's kind of MO, what we're learning a lot about JJ Redick is that like he wants guys that just won't piss him off.
Sure.
Like he wants guys that like he can bank on to do X, Y, and Z and won't make him blow up and walk into the middle of the court and scream whatever curse that you want to think of in that moment, curse word that is. And yeah, I think that's part of why Dalton
Well,
found his way out of the rotation was like because look, who else would be rooting more for Dalton than the
he was,
knockdown
yeah,
shooter
he's living
who
vicariously through
knows
him.
the value of especially a motion shooter. Like who else would be pulling? Like what other coach out there would be able to identify with somebody, a player like Dalton more than JJ Redick? And even he was like, nope, fuck this guy. I can't play him in the playoffs.
Yeah, and we'll never know, but I truly believe just Dalton returned from that trade, not all the way back with the team, right? Very much. And look,
Maybe.
getting traded matures you in a way. A lot of players have talked about how the first time they were traded, they understood the business of basketball. Like it was the first time, like, oh, they don't really love me like that. Like this is all, this is all
Yeah.
part of a much larger scheme. And Jordan Goodwin, to be fair, I mean, he's in his sixth year or fifth season. He's 2 years older than Dalton, but just a lot more experience. But that's an interesting, there's the narrative that JJ only likes shooting, right? But I mean, Jordan Goodwin, who shot well enough, I think, to your barrier of entry point. But yeah, it's interesting to see who stole his minutes. It wasn't Gabe Vincent. It wasn't a super vet on this team with a lot of real estate in terms of respect. It was Jordan Goodwin, another young guy who's fighting tooth and nail for his fight in the league. So we'll see with Dalton, but I would be kind of sad if he's just a throwaway in a trade, Anthony. I see a little bit more than that from him, but if it's to go acquire the next center or something like that, that's totally understandable. I hope it's not just some throw in or salary dump or something like that, where the Lakers are trying to get off Vando's contract and they include Dalton to do that. That's something that would be disappointing
Yep.
to me.
All right. Now that you're done making really, really good points, that is going to do it for this episode here of the Lakers Lounge podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. A reminder, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. All of those good, positive buttons, those are appreciated here. If you guys are listening to this in the morning via podcast, please hit subscribe wherever it is that you get your pods, preferably on Odyssey, because I am a company man. Check out all of Raj's work at silverscreenandroll.com. You can follow Raj on Twitter at Raj Japalu, and you can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Irwin LA. And then if you have any questions or especially complaints about the show, I've gotten a couple, like where do we leave? Where's the comments box? Where that we can leave. You can do that at HM Fagan on Twitter.
Yes.
He's a good person to hit up there. He pays close attention to all of those.
I heard he replies like right away. I heard like the response
right
time
away.
is
Yes,
incredible.
shoot him a DM. All those good things, and he gets right back to it. So, have a great rest of your evening or day. If you guys are listening to this in podcast form, make somebody else's, and we will talk to you. Actually, just heads up, I'll be doing Jovan's show tomorrow morning, so check out that whenever that airs as well, as part of the Odyssey Lakers network that we're working on. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye, everyone.